What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. On this week's episode, I'm going to show you how you can take a tarp and make 3 awesome shelter configurations off of a basic paracord ridge line that you could use almost anywhere in the woods in any weather. So stick around and let's do it. So in order to do this, the only really things that you're going to need are a tarp of some kind, stakes. I like to use these lightweight stakes. I can't remember where I bought these from, but these are just lightweight aluminum stakes. And then you're going to need a hank of paracord, about 25 or 30 feet or so. And what I've done here is I've used Dave Canterbury at Self-Reliance Outfitters Rapid Ridge line system. This is not my system, so I give full credits to them. You can go watch their video on how to make this and how to utilize it the way that they utilize it, and I would encourage you to do that. But in essence, all it really is a 25-foot hank of paracord with a bowline tied on one end to make a loop, and some number 36 bank line, 3 pieces of it tied on with a prusik, so then they can slide up and down the line and lock in place, and you'll use those to hold toggles and certain spots in place on the tarp depending on what configurations you're using. So you will want those on there. Those 3 things are all you're going to need to do any one of these 3 configurations, but you will need them. The nice thing about this is all that goes into your shelter component. That's pretty well all the components of it, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into showing you how to string this system up. Okay, so we got a couple trees here that are about 12-ish feet apart. I think these will work just fine. So just like that, it just spools right out and stays contained. So I'm going to start out with this tree. I'm going to stretch these. That should be enough. I want all the pieces of bank line that have the prusik on them. You're going to need some sticks laying around for toggles. But I want those over here where they're not going to be stuck behind the tree. It's a little bit bigger tree, but I think it'll be okay. And then you're going to want to do a marlin spike hitch. And for this first shelter configuration I'm going to show you, you're going to want it, and honestly we could probably do most of them like this, somewhere around that stomach level on me anyway, so about 4.5 foot. That'll be perfectly fine. So then we're going to take our running end over here, go around this tree, and we just barely made it. Almost too big this tree was. So I'm going to do a trucker's hitch. That's just how quick it takes to string up the line, if I wasn't talking through this and had a couple better trees to work with, it would take even less time than that, really just less than a minute. But your ridge line is set. This is plenty tight for what we're going to be doing. And then the first one that we're going to show you, which is to me the most versatile, is the lean-to. For one, it's the fastest, and it's a really good shelter to help buck the wind. You can kind of dictate the wind a little bit better with a lean-to, because it gives you a full, basically, real estate of your tarp to make something to stop the wind. And then if it's pitched out at about the right height, right angle, you have plenty of cover from the elements as well. So get your tarp laid out about where you want it. I'm just going to go ahead and put this out in the middle rather than trying to tie it in over here against the tree. So again, you're just taking these nifty little prusicks that are tied onto this line, and then all you need after that is just a stick. Just some pieces of stick to break off to make for toggles. And you can toggle them however you want. You can do a little girth hitch sort of a deal, overhand on top itself or whatever, however you want to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that right there. Come over here, do the same thing. Just going to run it through. You know, the funny thing about a lot of this is you can make it almost as complicated as you want, but for the sake of teaching you guys, we're trying not to make it real complicated. I like simple, and I'm sure most of you can appreciate that. All right. So then that end's tied in, and like I said, the beauty of these prusicks is they self-lock. So they slide down that line. I'm pulling on this thing as hard as I can, and I'm not tugging away at this other end. So those are pulled nice and tight into the line. And then right here in the middle, I like to go ahead and do the last one just to hold it in place. So toggle in there, pull it tight. So now we've got a tie-in point here, and then on each end. That's really going to keep this secured onto this ridge line. And putting the stakes in, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to do one on one side and one on the other. Having some pre-established tie-outs in the eyelets of your tarp will really help you out a lot. Okay, so just like that, you have a lean-to. I'm going to leave my ridge line in place since we've already established that. The next one I'm going to show you is the plow point, my second favorite of all the shelter configurations. Reason why being that it gives you a lot of security in the sense that you could have wind coming maybe a little bit sideways or from different directions on your shelter, and it doesn't matter because you're covered on more sides. And this one is just as quick, just as simple to put up. So you just need one point to tie into with one of these prusicks, and that's going to be your top edge. And the reason it's called a plow point is because it looks like an old bottom plow by the time it's all said and done. So for the sake of being sturdy, I might pull this over closer to that tree just so it's not pulling out here at the sagging middle of this line. So you've got that hooked on there. Now you're just going to come back here and pull it kind of tight. You don't have to reef on it too hard, but you don't want it to sag either. So I'm going to get it kind of tight back here and just push my stake right in the ground. That establishes the main part. And then come over here and get this side. Like I said, this is one of those shelters you might have to kind of play with this a little to get it exactly how you want it to be. And then bring this one back here. So that is the general premise of a plow point. Now, as you can see, it's nice and low to the ground. That's one thing I like about this being set at this height. It's a quick reference because for me, it's about my belly button, somewhere in there. And it gives me a nice low cover to work with. And the nice thing about it being lower, it's not going to catch as much wind. And there's also the aspect of not wanting to be seen. And that doesn't always mean you're doing shady things. Sometimes that just means that you don't want people bothering you while you're out camping. So rather than having this big, colorful, gaudy looking thing, you have this nice low profile shelter. And even for hunting, this is not going to be as noticed by animals and stuff like that the lower you keep to the ground. Okay, so the last one that we're going to do that it's probably one of the older configurations and used in a lot of different ways. I just don't do it very often. And that is the A-frame. Now, this A-frame is going to be a little bit different, just in the sense that it's going to be so high off the ground. This tarp is a little bit small, and that tarp is, or this line is a little bit high for what I would normally do with a ridge line for an A-frame, but it's going to work just fine. You'll see here in a second. I recall one time I was out that it started out nice weather that night. I knew there was a chance for rain. I didn't know how serious of a chance it was initially, but it turned into a pretty good rainstorm that night. I actually posted a video about that on the channel, and the really only way that it affected me, it was as simple as taking my lean-to and dragging it over top of this into an A-frame, and I was out of the rain for the night. This is, like I said, this isn't the height I would normally like to have this at for an A-frame. I would probably drop this ridge line a little bit lower, but for demonstration purposes, it works just fine. And there you go. It's not pretty. Like I said, my apologies, just due to the, there you go, how high up this off the ground. But then there you have the A-frame, which the name pretty well describes it, self-explanatory. It's just an A style roof. Then it will be really handy in rainy, wet conditions because it's going to pitch the water off in both directions. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. They're really easy to do. Anybody can do a tarp shelter, and if you do it right, it's a lot quicker, cheaper, and lighter than trying to deal with and fight a tent. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to stay tuned in for more content to come. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that bell icon so that you get notified when new videos drop. A lot of exciting stuff coming on the channel this year. So again, guys, thanks so much for views and support. I'll catch you next time.